Republican Senator Rand Paul went on Fox Business Channel with host Maria Bartiromo this week, where the two not only spread ridiculous lies about the 2020 presidential election, but also accidentally admitted that Republicans need voter suppression to win. Now, Rand Paul is not the first person to admit that this year. Trump himself admitted that this year. But Rand Paul straight up explains that getting non-voters to vote is somehow bad for Republicans. Gee, I wonder why that is. Before I run the clip here, I do want to reiterate the fact that what these two start off talking about, this massive fraud, the 2,200, it's all false. There is no evidence to support anything they say at the beginning of this clip. So, having said that, here's the clip.
But let me just get your take on the Georgia race. Are we going to see the same situation in Georgia on January 5th, where there were more ballots than actual people who voted, where there were ballots that weren't even folded, meaning they were never in an envelope, where the envelopes were separated from the ballot so you couldn't compare the signatures?
Well, there were 1,700 people that we heard voted twice. The Secretary of State needs to prosecute every one of them and deter them from doing it again. Their votes shouldn't be counted. There are thousands of people who voted from the wrong address in Georgia. Those people need to be taken out of the system, and they need to either re-register from a legal address or be prevented from voting from an illegal address. I don't know that they're doing any of that. And probably most importantly, they're mailing out a solicitation. They're mailing everybody out a solicitation to vote by mail. And this is not in the state law. This is something that has been created out of whole cloth by the Secretary of State. But if they do it again, yes, I'm very, very concerned that if you solicit votes from typically non-voters, that you will affect and change the outcome. So I'm very worried that Democrats will control all three branches of government, and they really, truly will transform America, but not for the better.
It's solicitation. You can't just go to a non-voter and say, hey, will you vote? We can give you a ballot. These Republicans are all the same, folks. And the reason for that is because they have spent the last 30 years doing everything in their power. Actually, they have spent decades and decades and decades, longer than 30 years, trying to suppress the vote. They've been very successful with it. And by suppressing the vote, getting Republican majorities in certain states, they're able to gerrymander those states. As I love to point out, the Crenshaw video earlier this week, where you saw his little curvy half circle, half moon district shape. That's what Republican majorities do. And they can only do that as long as they keep suppressing the vote to maintain their majorities. They then gerrymander the states to the point where they cannot lose. But on the national level, the gerrymandering doesn't necessarily matter when you're talking about presidential elections or Senate elections. For House, yes, it does. Senate, President, not so much. And that's what Rand Paul is terrified of, because right now in the state of Georgia for this runoff, we have already seen a record number of people request absentee ballots vote by mail. Increased voter turnout never bodes well for Republicans. That's why they want to suppress the vote. So if we're going to have huge, massive turnout in this Georgia runoff, which hopefully we do, Republicans are immediately at a disadvantage. And that's what Rand Paul is talking about there. That's why they keep harping on all this imaginary fraud that they have created in their own minds. Now, here's the kicker on all this. Just like Donald Trump with the 2020 election, poo-pooing all of these alternative, voting methods, vote by mail, voting early, all of it, it suppressed his vote. So Rand Paul, by trying to suppress Democrats, might actually be spreading enough propaganda to end up suppressing Republican votes, which might end up flipping the Senate. So, hey, silver linings, right? The more you go out there and lie about the process and destroy the faith your base has in that process, the less likely they are to participate.